Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, counter-spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve. Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet.
Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into a time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
Do you remember the television show Make Room for Daddy? If you do, you remember Sherry Jackson, the older daughter Terry Williams, on the Danny Thomas show. Make Room for Daddy during the first three seasons of the show. Well, she was in that show from 1953 to 1958. And in this episode of Suspense, from March 1st, 1955, you hear Sherry Jackson as a young child. In this episode, entitled The Screaming Woman.
And now, tonight's presentation of radio's outstanding theater of thrills, Suspense. Tonight, the story of a little girl and the terror in a vacant lot. We call it The Screaming Woman. So now, starring Sherry Jackson, here is tonight's suspense play, The Screaming Woman.
I'm Margaret Leary, and I got to tell you how it happened. It was Thanksgiving Day, and it was nice and sunshiny, almost like summer except cooler. Mama was cooking the turkey, and I was watching. And Mama said to me,
"Oh, good heavens, I forgot. Your Aunt Betty's made some cranberry relish for us. Run over and get it, Margaret, so her feelings aren't hurt. And hurry, dear, this turkey's done to a turn."
So I ran to Aunt Betty's, and on the way back I took a shortcut through Mr. Kelly's lot. It's a swell place to play Indians and cowboys, or explorer, or hunting for treasure, because trucks dump all kinds of stuff there. Loads of dirt and junk, and even big things like old cars and big pipes and chunks of concrete. Well, this day, coming back from Aunt Betty's, I saw that a lot of new junk and dirt had been dumped there since Saturday. They'd even covered up a swell big concrete pipe that us kids called our fort. Covered it clear up. Well, I was looking around to see where it used to be, when all of a sudden, the sound was coming up out of the ground. A woman was buried under the junk and dirt and glass, and she was screaming all wild and horrible for someone to dig her out. I started to run. I fell down and got up and ran some more. It was an awful, awful long way to our house that day.
Margaret.
Mama!
Margaret, haven't I told you not to slam the door? Oh, is that the relish?
Listen, Mama, there's a screaming woman in the lot.
Wash your hands, Margaret.
She was screaming and screaming and screaming. Mama, listen to me. We gotta dig her out. She's buried under tons and tons of dirt.
Well, I'm sure she can wait till after dinner. Oh, honestly, next year, I swear I'm going to buy a bigger platter.
Mama, don't you believe me? You gotta believe me.
Oh, look, honey, I've got a million things to do. Oh, good gosh, look at you. How'd you get your knees so dirty?
Well, running back from the lot,
Well, never mind. Scoot and tell your dad we're about to eat. He's in the front room reading his paper.
Dad! Oh, Dad, I gotta tell you something.
Getting hungry, baby?
Dad, there's a screaming woman in the lot.
I never knew a woman who didn't.
We gotta get picks and shovels and dig her up. Dad!
Oh, I don't feel much like an archaeologist today, Margaret. Can't think of anything but food. Let's have an expedition next Sunday and dig her up.
We can't wait that long. Dad, you'll die if we don't do it now.
Calm down now.
Dad, please.
Listen, dear. After our Thanksgiving dinner, I'll come out and listen to your screaming woman. How's that?
No, now, Dad. Maybe she'll die if you don't come out now. You got to come now.
Margaret?
If you believe me, you wouldn't wait.
Margaret, listen.
You never believe me. Mama doesn't believe me. Nobody believes
Margaret,
me.
quiet down right this minute. Or I not only won't go with you, but you'll go to your room and stay, and without your Thanksgiving dinner. Now, is that clear?
Yes, sir. It's clear.
Margaret, you heard Mother. Don't gobble.
But, Dad, we gotta hurry.
My dear young lady, this is Thanksgiving dinner, an occasion when we do not hurry.
Oh, please,
Listen,
Dad.
if you pester me any more, if you mention her again, this screaming what's-this, I won't go out with you to hear her recital at all. Now, is that understood?
Yes, sir. It's understood.
Well, now that I can be thankful for a full stomach, I guess we should consider what other things we have to be thankful for.
Well, we're all healthy.
And I'm thankful for my big daughter. Right, baby?
Yes, Dad.
And for my loving wife, who is still the most romantic woman I know.
Oh, silly.
I'm thankful I didn't marry somebody else.
Well, you nearly married Dora Lampel. You even gave her a ring.
Oh, that never meant a thing. No, you've only had one serious competitor since we were all kids.
Oh, who?
Helen Nesbitt. Yeah, Helen was my first love. When she was about as old as Margaret, I gave her a present one Christmas, and she gave me one. I still have it.
That paperweight on your desk.
Just funny how we hang on to things that were important when we were kids.
Dad.
Now, just a little longer, Margaret.
Oh, Dad, please.
Oh, go on, dear. You'd better take her out to the lot before she collapses.
Okay, come on, Margaret. Let's hear this wailing banshee of yours. Now, just where is this screaming woman of yours? Lead me to her.
Over here, where our fort used to be.
The fort?
The big concrete pipe. It's all covered up now.
Kelly is really getting this lot filled in. All right, where's the lady?
Right about here, Dad. Listen.
Don't hear a thing except the wind. You better button your sweater, Margaret.
Listen.
No, it's the trolley over on Aspen Street.
Hey there! Screaming woman! Hey!
I'm afraid your screaming woman's let you down.
But she was here, Dad. Right under where they've dumped all this dirt. I heard her screaming and screaming and screaming like she was underneath in the fort. Somebody's dumped tons and tons right on top of our fort.
Oh, well, that's too bad they buried your fort, dear. I saw two of Kelly's big trucks here last evening, and there was a dump truck in here this morning, too.
It isn't because they covered the fort.
Well, it must be your screaming woman doesn't like grown-ups. Only delivers her solo for kids.
Maybe she can't scream anymore.
Well, I'm going to take a nap now. Let my dinner settle.
Aren't you going to help me dig?
Don't you think this is a sort of silly game?
It's not a game.
All right. All right, dear, but don't stay too long. Mama probably would like some help with those dishes.
Dad! Oh, I know I heard her scream. I know it. Oh, darn. You are there. You are there. Hey, screaming woman. Why didn't you scream before? Why didn't you scream so Daddy could hear you? Oh, just don't scream for me. I can't help you all by myself. Dad, she's screaming again. Right after you left, she started to scream. You've got to come back.
Oh, there now, Margaret. Come here. Let me feel your head.
Please, Daddy, please.
Oh, you've got a fever.
Please,
Now, you're
Daddy.
going to lie down, young lady.
We can't leave her down there, Dad. We can't.
Come along in your room.
It's awful, Dad. It's awful for her to be screaming and screaming and nobody listening or caring.
Margaret.
She'll choke when there isn't any more air and then she'll die.
You're going to lie down the rest of the afternoon before you make yourself sick.
No, I've got to dig her up. I've got to go back.
It's all those comic books you've read, darling. Now I forbid you to leave the house. Close your eyes and take a nap like a good little girl.
What am I going to do? What am I going to do?
You are listening to The Screaming Woman, tonight's presentation in radio's outstanding theater of thrills, Suspense.
March 1st, 1955, Suspense on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. On Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, we're listening to an episode of radio's outstanding theater of thrills suspense, The Screaming Woman, starring Sherry Jackson. But what's even more interesting is the author of this script, Ray Bradbury. Sylvia Richards adapted the original script, which was used for Suspense in 1948. Now, more of The Screaming Woman on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox.
And now, we bring back to our Hollywood soundstage Sherry Jackson, starring in tonight's production of The Screaming Woman, a tale well calculated to keep you in suspense.
After a while, I stopped crying. I had to get back to the lot where that woman was screaming, but I was locked in. So I tied a sheet to the bed and let it out the window and shinnied down to the ground. Then I ran to the garage and got shovels and ran to the empty lot. The sun was almost down and it was getting cold. I started to dig fast.
Hi, Maggie.
It was Dippy Smith. He goes to my school.
What you digging for?
For a screaming woman. She's down on the ground, and I'm going to dig her up. You can help me dig, Dippy. There's an extra shovel.
I don't hear nothing.
Well, listen. Just listen.
No, I don't hear nothing.
Well, just wait. You will. Hey, there, did you hear it?
Hey, that's okay. Do it again.
Do what again?
The scream. Do it again. Go on. I'll give you this Aggie if you teach me to do it. Hot dog! Did you get that ventriloquist book for $10 from the Magic Company? You got one of those tin things in your mouth?
I won't tell you unless you help me dig.
Okay, swell, give me the shovel. Hot dog!
And you gotta dig fast, like this.
Boy, you'd think she was right under our feet. Oh, you're wonderful, Maggie. What's the screaming woman's name? Made up a name for her yet?
Oh, sure. Her name is Shirley Miller, and she's a rich old lady, 160 years old, and she was buried by a crook named Spike. Come on, Dippy, dig! Keep digging. We can't stop.
Oh, I'm tired. I think I'll go home.
Dippy, there really is a woman buried there.
Oh, sure.
Don't you believe me? I wasn't throwing my voice. Honest, I wasn't, Dippy.
Hey, you couldn't talk and scream together. There really is a woman here.
That's what I told you.
Come on, let's dig. How's she breathing, do you think?
I think she's in the fort. Remember?
Sure, that's where she is. 5 or 6 of us kids could get in it, so it's big enough.
Hey! What do you kids think you're doing?
Oh, hello,
Mr. Kelly.
I'm tired of chasing you out of this lot. If one of you get hurt, maybe your folks would sue me.
But, Mr. Kelly, there's a woman screaming.
You kids beat it, you hear?
Yes, sir. But listen, Mr. Kelly, don't you hear her? There.
I don't hear anything, and neither do you. Now beat it.
Come on, Maggie.
Mr. Kelly, somebody's got to dig her up.
Don't argue with me, or I'll phone your folks. This is my property. Do I have to put up a fence? Why should I spend money to keep people off my property by putting up a fence?
Dippy, it's him. He's the one. Huh? He murdered Mrs. Kelly. He hit her on the head and stuck her in the fort and dumped loads of dirt on top. But she wasn't dead. She came to. Why, you saw him. He stood right there when she screamed and wouldn't pay any attention.
Hey, that's right. He stood right there and lied to us. What do we do, Maggie?
There's only one thing to do. We'll phone the police and tell them to come and arrest Mr. Kelly.
Hey, they sure got here fast, Maggie.
Shh. Don't make a sound. Stay down. Mr. Kelly might get desperate and shoot or something.
Oh, yes? Officer?
You, Mr. Kelly?
Yes, sir. Well, what can I do for you?
Is Mrs. Kelly at home this evening?
Why, sure.
May I see her, sir?
Why, sure. Hey, Anna! What's up?
Well, we got a call. Oh, Good evening, ma'am.
What is it, officer?
Well, I'm sorry, folks. We got a call that Mrs. Kelly was buried alive in some empty lot.
Whoa.
It sounded like some kid calling, but we had to make sure. We always check.
Oh, I can't understand.
It's those blasted kids! If I ever catch them, I'll break their necks.
Maggie, cheese it! Boy, if Kelly telephones my dad, I'll get a licking.
What'll we do about the screaming woman?
Oh, to heck with her. I'm not going near that lot again.
Wait a minute, Dippy. I know why he didn't hear the screams. Kelly's sort of deaf. Mama says he's hard of hearing.
Well, he heard us, didn't he? He heard the cop.
He reads people's lips, but he couldn't hear the screaming woman because he couldn't see her. Dippy, come on, we gotta go dig some more.
No, sir.
We got to.
We're in a pack of trouble because of your old darn old screaming woman. I'm not gonna get in any more trouble, no, sir. So long, Maggie.
And he went off and left me all alone. It was dark now, and Dad would be hunting for me. If he found me, I'd get a licking and be put to bed, and then nobody would help the screaming woman at all. There was only one last thing to do, to go all over the neighborhood from house to house and find out who was missing. So I rang bells and knocked, but everybody was home, and I was about to give up when I came to the Nesbitt's house. The house was quiet, like nobody was home, but I saw a dim, spooky light inside somewhere. So I just kept knocking and knocking and knocking.
What do you want?
Nothing, Mr. Nesbitt. I want to see Mrs. Nesbitt.
She's not here. She's gone to the store.
Oh, then she ought to be back pretty quick. I'll come in and wait.
Hey, wait a minute.
I'll just sit down here and wait. I sure like a rocking chair. Don't mind me. Go right ahead doing whatever you were doing, Mr. Nesbitt.
I wasn't doing anything.
Oh. It looks like you were packing or something with all those boxes and trunks around. Going away?
No. Mrs. Nesbitt's been sorting things out, getting rid of a lot of stuff.
Oh. Burning it up in the fireplace.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
Dad always burns our junk out in the alley. Cloth smells awful when it burns. I think that...
Look, kid, Helen may have gone on from the store to visit a friend.
Well, if she doesn't come soon, I'll leave.
Yeah, and I'll tell her you were here. What did you want to see her about?
Oh, nothing much. Hey, that's too bad.
What?
I guess you lost the key to that box. You had to break the lock.
It was broken already. I bet your folks don't know where you are, kid.
No, sir. They think I'm in bed. What friend did Mrs. Nesbitt go visit?
I don't know. Look, kid, I ought to tell you. She won't be back tonight.
Oh?
No. She went to the store, like I said, but she was going from there over to Beechwood to visit her mother. On a bus. She'll be gone 2 or 3 days.
Oh, that's a shame.
Why?
Mama was expecting Mrs. Nesbitt to come over tomorrow, maybe to sew.
You better not tell your mother. You see, it's kind of a secret about Helen going away. She doesn't want people to know for a while.
Oh.
You know how to keep a secret, kid.
I guess so.
I'll give you something for not telling. I'll give you a reward now. Let's see here. All right. Here's something for a kid. A doll.
A doll?
Yeah. Helen was going to give it to you. I heard her say when she was sorting this stuff. I'll give this to the little Leary girl.
That's funny. Mrs. Nesbitt always calls me Margaret.
Well, sure. That's what she said. Margaret. Yeah, you see, it's quite a doll. Old-fashioned. It's made of leather, and the face is china. Something. You see?
Uh-huh. Thank you, Mr. Nesbitt.
It's a reward for not saying anything about Helen being gone, you understand? Now, come on. I'll step on the porch light.
Mr. Nesbitt, I saw your dump truck in the lot this morning.
What do you mean? Were you in the lot this morning?
No, I was home. I looked out the window. Please, Mr. Nesbit, let go of my arm.
You been playing out there today? Answer me.
Don't! That hurts. I wasn't playing. It's no fun now with the fort covered up and...
The fort? What's that?
Nothing. Nothing, Mr. Nesbit.
Tell me what you're talking about.
Nothing but that old concrete pipe.
You know something. That's why you came here. You've been snooping around that lot and you found out something. What do you know?
March 1st, 1955, The Screaming Woman, an episode of Suspense. The conclusion follows these messages on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Classic Radio Theater family, you know our friend Mike Lindell has a passion to help everyone get the best sleep of your life. He didn't stop by just creating the best pillow. He created the best bed sheets ever. They look and feel great, which means an even better night's sleep for me because, you know, I'm working like 67 hours a day. Now, Mike's offering the best deal on his Giza Dreams bed sheets ever. You can get a set of Giza sheets for as low as $29.98. You'll never want to sleep on anything else once you slept on a set of Giza Dream sheets. A special offer for you right now. You can get a set of Giza sheets for as low as $29.98. Call 1-800-928-4715. Use the promo code Wyatt. Or go to mypillow.com, use the promo code Wyatt. It's good on anything on the website. That number again, 1-800-928-4715. Use my promo code Wyatt. Now on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, the startling conclusion to Suspense, The Screaming Woman, starring Sherry Jackson, March 1st, 1955.
You know something. That's why you came here. You've been snooping around that lot and you found out something.
Listen.
What do you know?
I don't know anything. Let me go. Mr. Nesbit, if you don't let me go,
Hey, come back. Come back, kid. I'll give you something else. Come back, kid. Come back.
Mr. Nesbit yelled because I kicked him and bit his hand. Then I ran, but I heard him run after me. It was dark and quiet and scary on the street, and more scary out there in the lot. I ran straight across the place where I'd heard the screaming, and it was so quiet. And all of a sudden there was a man in the lot, right in front of me.
Margaret, stop!
Oh, Dad!
Margaret, where have you been? Do you have any idea how your mama's worried? Do you know how late it is?
Dad, he's after me.
We've been up and down
Nesbit.
alleys and clear down to Clark Street. I was about to call the police.
The screaming woman. It's Mrs. Nesbit who's down there.
I'm going to give you a good licking.
Mr. Nesbit killed her, and now he wants to kill me.
I've had all of this idiotic talk I can stand.
It's true. He said she's gone away, and he was burning her things. You've got to believe...
Margaret, that's enough. Now stop it right now. What have you got there? Where did you get that doll?
Mr. Nesbit...
I gave it to her, Leary. The kid stopped by the house, and I remembered Helen said she wanted to throw it away.
Helen said to throw it away?
He's lying, Dad. He gave it to me so I wouldn't tell about her. It was locked up in a box. He didn't have a key. He broke it open.
She's a high-strung kid, Leary. All the stuff she was telling me.
He's lying, Dad.
Why are you lying, Charlie?
Lying? How do you get that?
Helen was going to give it to Margaret on her birthday. She told me so. It was a present I gave her a long time ago. She wouldn't have thrown it away any more than I'd thrown away the paperweight she gave me. Why are you lying, Charlie?
I'm not. Don't look at me like that, Leary. As God is my witness.
It's her, Dad. It's the screaming woman.
As God is your witness.
No! Leary! No!
Margaret, run to the house. Phone the police and tell them to hurry. Tell them we've got to dig.
Hello?
Hi, Dippy. Everything's fine. Everything's worked out keen. The screaming woman isn't screaming anymore. They got a lot of people down there digging her up.
Hey, swell. Hot dog.
And you know what else, Dippy? They uncovered our fort again, and now we'll be able to get the kids and play in it tomorrow.
Suspense, in which Sherry Jackson starred in The Screaming Woman by Ray Bradbury. Next week, the story of a man who tries to escape his past and is faced with no future. We call it Nobody Ever Quits. That's next week on Suspense. Suspense is produced and transcribed by Anthony Ellis. Adaptation was by Sylvia Richards. The music was composed by Lucian Marwick and conducted by Wilbur Hatch. Featured in the cast were Paula Winslow, John Daner, Richard Beals, Howard McNear, Joe Cranston, Herb Butterfield, and Eve McVeigh.
March 1st, 1955, Suspense on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Now on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, we go to yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Part 4 of the 5-part story, The Fathom Five Matter. This episode was originally broadcast on the first day of March, 1956.
From Hollywood, it's time now for...
Johnny Dollar? Yes, just a moment. It's for you, Mr. Dollar.
Thanks. Johnny Dollar.
Barney Wilson here. Your hotel told me where to locate you.
I'd rather you located that car.
All the police agencies in the state have the license number and description. It'll turn up.
Well, the sooner the better.
It'll take more than a car to prove William Markey is still alive.
The dealer who sold it to him identified his photograph.
All right, but he bought the car 2 weeks ago. We know he was alive at that time. In case you've forgotten, Mr. Dollar, the Fathom Five sank only 4 days ago. That's when Markey was murdered.
Okay. We're not going to settle it by arguing.
That's why I phoned. It's going to be settled tomorrow morning.
You've petitioned for a hearing?
10 o'clock in Judge Campbell's chambers.
You're making a mistake.
See you in court, Mr. Dollar.
Tonight and every weekday night, Bob Bailey in the transcribed adventures of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. From Special Investigator Johnny Dollar, location Miami Beach, to the Home Office, Delta Liability, Hartford, Connecticut. Assignment, the Fathom Five Matter. The case of a cruiser mysteriously sunk off the Florida coast. I phoned the insurance company's legal counsel and told him that Wilson had petitioned a hearing to have William Markey declared legally dead. Then I rejoined Mrs. Markey in the study. She was tense and on edge, pacing the floor and smoking nervously. I watched her a moment without saying anything, fully aware of her beauty and appeal, and fully convinced also that she and her missing husband were trying to swindle my company out of $75,000 in life insurance. I felt a little sorry for Markey. She must have been a pretty expensive luxury for a man who was going broke. But then I stopped feeling sorry. I remembered that they'd tried to set up young Danny Haynes as the fall guy for murder.
Well, why don't you go ahead and say it?
Say what?
Whatever it is you're thinking.
I thought I'd already said it, and pretty bluntly, too.
You made some wild accusations.
Not so wild. I've got some fairly solid facts to back them up.
Apparently the DA's office doesn't agree with you. Wasn't that Mr. Wilson on the phone?
That's right.
And didn't he say he would ask the court to declare my husband legally dead?
He's going to try to, but we'll stop him cold. He hasn't got a leg to stand on.
Well, that's what you're hired for, isn't it? To find some technicalities so they can get out of paying off on a policy?
Attempted fraud isn't exactly a technicality, Mrs. Markey. Now I'll repeat that advice I just gave you. Get in touch with your husband. Tell him the scheme is off. It won't work. And don't file a claim for that life insurance.
You'd like that, wouldn't you? You'd just love to bluff me out of $75,000.
No. I just kind of hate to see you go to prison, that's all. And that's exactly what is going to happen if you file that claim.
You keep talking about some scheme. What scheme, Mr. Dollar?
You want it laid right on the line, huh?
I'd just like to know what you're talking about.
And just how much I've figured out, all right. All right, I'll paint it for you in black and white. Your husband was broke, flat broke. I'm not guessing there. I got a report on him from a financial investigator in New York.
I knew nothing about his business affairs.
That I wouldn't know. Anyway, he thought he saw a chance to pull off a swindle on the basis of the only thing he had left, that $75,000 life insurance policy. So the two of you worked it out together.
Did your financial investigator tell you that? Or would you be guessing?
Your husband bought a car under an assumed name and probably rented living quarters somewhere in the area under another assumed name. So it was all set. It was just a matter of waiting for a morning when a heavy fog was down.
You have a fantastic imagination.
Meantime, just in case the accident theory didn't go over, you kept playing young Haynes along so it would seem as though he had a motive for murder. And that part was a cinch. He was already halfway in love with you.
You also have a rather nasty imagination.
So finally, 4 days ago, conditions were just right. Your husband took Haynes out on that fishing trip in the Fathom Five. He anchored the cruiser and sent Haynes off along the reef in the dinghy. Then he set fire to the boat, opened the seacock so it would be sure to sink. He swam ashore and drove off in the car that he'd bought for exactly that purpose.
As I understand it, Mr. Dollar, that cruiser was anchored a mile or two offshore. Are you actually suggesting my husband swam that distance?
You mean that's something else you supposedly didn't know about?
What?
Oh, that report from New York was more complete than you seem to realize. William Markey has been a member of the Greenpoint Athletic Club for years. He won silver cups in the Long Island Sound Marathon Swim 3 different times.
I knew he belonged to the club, of course, but I assumed it was more social.
Of course he could swim that far. That particular talent was probably what gave him the idea for the whole thing.
There's no proof, you know. Not one bit of real proof.
There will be, if you try to collect that insurance. We'll turn up enough proof to reach all the way from here to the state prison. So if you try to...
Will you excuse me, please?
Yeah, sure.
I'll be right back.
I lit a cigarette and waited for her, wondering why I even bothered to come here. I was fed up with it, sick of the whole thing. Fraud cases are like that, messy and dirty. You see people with a mask down and you get a look inside. And you get to wondering if everybody's like that. Wondering if you'd be like that yourself, maybe, if the price were right. And if you are, you hope you never find it out. All I wanted at the moment was to leave the house, wind the thing up, and get out of town.
I'm sorry, Mr. Dollar. It was somebody looking for an address. I mean, they had a wrong address.
I see.
Well, I think we at least understand each other now.
Yeah, I'm sure we do.
And I can say only one thing. You're wrong. You're completely and absolutely wrong.
Maybe.
I wish you weren't. I wish my husband were still alive, even under the circumstances you believe. Maybe I wouldn't be on the verge of a nervous breakdown, trying to hold on to my sanity. Maybe I wouldn't be crying alone at night.
You have my deepest sympathy, Mrs. Markey, for everything you're going through.
There's no use at all in trying to talk to you, is there?
Not unless you care to tell me where to find your husband.
Good night, Mr. Dollar.
I left the house and turned down the dark road toward the Pompano Beach Hotel. I'd planned to pick up a taxi there, but after that unknown visitor came to Mrs. Markey's door, I'd made a slight change in the plans. Whoever it was hadn't been a stranger, that I was sure of. She'd been too nervous when she came back into the room. It was someone she hadn't wanted me to know about, and I was pretty certain I could guess who. Evening, Mr. Haynes.
What? Oh, you're Mr. Dollar, the insurance investigator.
Mind if I come in?
Well, all right, sure.
You, weren't asleep, were you?
No, I was just reading.
Been here all evening?
Yeah, sure I've been here. Why?
You haven't been out in the last half hour?
I said I'd been here all evening.
You weren't down the road at the Markey place a few minutes ago?
No, I wasn't. Now, look, I've answered just about all the questions I'm going to you or to anybody else. So what are you trying to get at? What's the point?
All right, forget it, Danny.
Sure, forget it. It looks like you're out to try the same thing Wilson's doing, trying to tag me on a murder rap. And you're trying to drag Edna into it, Mrs. Markey. Oh, she told me how you talked to her last night. And I suppose you've been over there again this evening.
Oh, relax, Danny.
I'll tell you one thing right now. You better leave her alone and stop trying to push her around. She doesn't deserve it. She's had too much of that kind of stuff as it is.
Oh? From whom, Danny?
From Marky, that's from whom.
She tell you that?
I suppose you'll claim she's lying. You think everybody is lying, but you don't know her like I do. She's a sweet kid, Dollar, and she's had a raw deal out of life.
Such as?
Marky. The way he treated her, things he made her do. Oh, not when anybody would see it. Pin it on him. He was too smart for that. But she told me about it, and there were plenty of times I could hardly keep from smashing him in the face.
Oh, brother, she's got you really set up good.
What do you mean by that?
If you talk this way to Wilson at the DA's office for 2 minutes, he'd slap a murder indictment on you so fast it'd make your head swim.
I didn't kill Marky. Hating a guy is one thing, but I didn't kill him.
Yeah, I know. Because he's still alive.
Well, maybe he is. I don't know. All I know is what I saw out there that morning.
And you saw only as much as he wanted you to see.
Well, maybe so. But I'll tell you one thing. If he is trying to pull something crooked, he's doing it on his own. She's not in on it.
It'd be a little hard for him to collect his own insurance, wouldn't it?
Maybe he figured to get it away from her afterward. I don't know what he might be planning on, but I know she's got nothing to do with it. She's a great girl. I've never known anybody like her before.
No, I don't imagine you have.
I'd lay down my life for her if it ever came to that.
And I imagine that's exactly what they were counting on. Good night, Danny. Expense account item 16, $1.90. Taxi fare the following morning from my hotel to the courthouse. I got there at 9:30 and went over the case with Jim Davis, local counsel for the insurance company. And at 10 o'clock, the hearing on Wilson's petition was open in chamber session, Judge A.G. Campbell presiding. Judge Campbell kept the proceedings informal, and the whole thing moved pretty fast. Both sides presented briefs, and additional evidence was introduced through verbal interrogation. No witnesses were called. By 10:30, the cases for both sides had been completed.
Very well. There is no further evidence of fact or rebuttal. The court will make its decision on the evidence at hand. Now, in cases of this nature, where it is requested that the fact of death be established by legal declaration, it has been generally held that the substantiating evidence for said request must be essentially unchallengeable. The precedents in law are too numerous to bother citing. Now, in the case we are considering here, it seems to the court that the substantiating evidence is far from unchallengeable. In point of fact, it would seem that the bulk of the evidence indicates that William Markey may indeed be still alive. Now, the court would be powerless to act even in the face of a reasonable doubt. And the contrary evidence here is a good deal stronger than a reasonable doubt. Therefore, in the matter of the request made herein that William Markey be declared legally dead, it is the court's decision that the petition not be granted. If new evidence becomes available at some future time, the petition may be resubmitted. The court is adjourned.
Well, looks like you won, Mr. Dollar.
I told you what would happen.
I sure do hate to see that kid get away with murder.
Oh, forget it. Markey's walking around somewhere just as alive as you or I.
Well, we've all got a right to our opinions, Mr. Dollar. I say he's floating around out there in the Atlantic somewhere.
That's what he meant for us to think.
Maybe so, but I...
Pardon me, Mr. Wilson. A message was phoned in for you, but they wouldn't let me in the courtroom.
Oh, thank you, old man. Will excuse me, Mr. Dollar?
Sure. Go ahead and read it.
The minute I step out of that office, somebody's bound to start calling... Well.
What's the matter?
Mr. Dollar, the Coast Patrol hauled a man's body out of the surf about an hour ago. Been drowned.
So?
They got a quick check on his prints. It's William Markey.
Now, here's our star to tell you about the final intriguing episode of this week's story.
Tomorrow, a dead man tells a tale, but not the tale he was meant to tell, and thereby hangs the wind-up. Join us, won't you? Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, starring Bob Bailey, is transcribed in Hollywood. Written by Les Crutchfield, it is produced and directed by Jack Johnstone. Be sure to join us tomorrow night, same time and station, for the next exciting episode of Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Roy Rowan speaking.
March 1st, 1956, yours truly, Johnny Dollar on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. I want to say a few more words about the suspense story we heard before Johnny Dollar. And that is one of the great things about doing these shows, is that we get to hear the work of not only actors, but also authors before they had seriously hit mainstream. As we said, the original script that Ray Bradbury had written that was later, it was a 1948 episode of Suspense. It was later adapted by Bradbury into a full short story. And then it went on in other things. And Bradbury became amazing. He wrote so many great works along the way. Anyway, that's one of the great parts about doing these shows is you can hear actors and authors and others in perspectives that we don't ordinarily get to see them, or in their early days of their activities. Thank you for tuning in. Visit our webpage, classicradio.stream. At classicradio.stream, you can stream our shows on demand. You can learn about building a classic radio collection of your own. You can contact me there. You can find our social media links, and you can also buy me a coffee. That Buy Me a Coffee function allows us to acquire additional classic radio collections, and it helps us support our distribution channels to help keep us on your favorite station. And, of course, that goes through also the supporting of the advertisers. But if you want to put us in, a little bit to the Buy Me a Coffee fund, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in. Tell all your friends the great radio shows are right here at this spot on the dial. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite radio station.